Horror manga are amazing, and we come to them for one single blood-curdling feeling. As uncomfortable as it makes us feel, we can't help but be attracted to fear. Here are 100 horror manga that are going to traumatize you. Blood on the tracks. No manga is quite as ominous as this one, with it giving us very disgusting and disturbing imagery, constantly showing us a dead cat. This psychological horror follows a boy with a seriously overprotective mother. She takes it to a weird extreme, from the way she kisses her son and how she deals with his bullies. For instance, the boy's cousin would jokingly try and push him down the edge of a cliff. The mother, catching wind of this, takes it upon herself to kill her own nephew by pushing him down that same cliff. And with her son being the only one to witness her murdering his cousin, she just so happens to manipulate him to keeping it all a secret. This one is skin-crawling and thought-provoking for sure. Fort of Apocalypse. Yoshiaki Maeda is framed for murder, and now he has to live his days in a juvenile detention center. This place is definitely out of the ordinary, to say the least, because not only are there insane murderous convicts inside, but there are superhuman zombies that can survive having their necks and their spines broken, making them, for lack of a better word, unstoppable. So this prison is definitely one you want to stay away from, and the characters in this manga do just that. But honestly, it might have been better to stay inside, because the taste of freedom comes at a price. This led me to understand the true sense of terror this manga had deep within. Occupying the city is a giant pile of zombie superhumans, and sitting on top of them, as if he were a god, is a man known as the Child of Light, who is set out to cast judgment upon the entire world, destroying it in the name of God. So not only do we get some insane zombies in the story, but we get some religious context, making it far from your basic survival horror manga. Dragonhead. After a subway train accident, 3 children are left alone as survivors. After being stuck in the darkness for so long, the 3 of them slowly but surely begin to lose their sanity. Worst of them all is Teru, who had been bullied his entire life. While searching for everyone who has died, he finds the bodies of the same people that bullied him, and in a fit of rage, he beats down their corpses with a flashlight and gets a boner. This character is easily one of the biggest reasons to look at Dragonhead, because he is unsettling, and every single panel he's on is just gonna make you uncomfortable, especially when he starts worshiping an evil god that he thinks exists inside of the train tunnels. While worshiping it, he tries to make as many human sacrifices as possible, making him not only a psychopath, but a fear-obsessed murderer, as the gods will. If you always wanted Squid Game where God just tortures helpless human beings, this is the manga for you. Shun is bored with his life, and to make things more exciting, his teacher's head blows up in the middle of class one day, leaving behind a Daruma doll that forces everyone to play games against their will. But is it really just a game when God is summoning a giant cat, forcing everyone not only to dress up as mice, but to play basketball with a giant monster that's going to kill them? The blood and gore here is sickening, and it can get worse. Just a simple act of jump rope turns into a situation where characters are getting decapitated from the rope moving so fast. The gods will have you at the edge of your seat reading this. H.P. Lovecraft's The Call of Cthulu. If you're a fan of Lovecraft, well, this is definitely a must read, with unmatched artwork capturing the Cthulhu mythos. From horrifying practices of the Cthulhu cult and exploring Cthulhu's tomb, what more could you really want from this? Because this manga adaptation of a novel that you already love goes above and beyond, depicting how horrifying Lovecraft's works are. Homunculus. Being both a paranormal and a psychological horror manga, there's an interesting approach here. A homeless man takes part in a shady lab experiment where his brain gets drilled into, which allows him to see things that aren't normally there. He is able to see a homunculus, and the homunculus is the true version in which someone sees themselves. Due to past trauma, a Yakuza man would see himself as a mecha, while in this armor is his younger self. One thing that immediately catches our attention is how big his pinky is, which is symbolic of the trauma and pain he has experienced. In his past as a child, this Yakuza member cut off his own best friend's pinky, and to feel better about himself, he joins the Yakuza specifically so that he can cut other people's pinkies off, showing us a sick and innocent side of people. This social commentary on life is scary yet fulfilling because of how realistic it is. It's quite literally a roller coaster ride, seeing how they deal with everyone's lives and allow this homeless man to not only change everyone around him, but take in all of their pain and suffering. The social experiments here are worth reading. No longer human. Yozo Oba doesn't fit in, nor does he understand human beings, so he turns himself into a class clown to connect with them. His life is one filled with countless mistakes. To make up for his loneliness, he would take it upon himself to hook up with countless women. If you like Goodnight Poon Poon, this is gonna really hit home. Every event in Yozo's life can easily be described as nightmare fuel. He sleeps with the wrong women, abuses drugs, and loses his job. And it just gets worse and worse. It's scary seeing what he has to go through every single day. Starving Anonymous. A school student finds himself inside of a testing facility made up as a breeding ground for human beings and a feeding ground to something sinister. Without a doubt, this is SCP in manga form. People are fed as if they're lab experiments so that they can satisfy a monster's appetite. And the people that work there are definitely not safe. People are skinned, mutilated, and eaten in no specific order. This manga is so bloody, it can be sickening at times. And seeing if the main characters can escape this facility is adrenaline pumping to say the least. Jinmen. This blends the biology of humans and animals in the worst way possible. You might want to stay away from your local zoo while reading this because this is actually pretty traumatizing. Animals begin to have a lot more human qualities while wearing human faces and having the ability to speak. To really illustrate how horrifying this manga is, you would see puppies with the faces of babies. While fighting a deer, it just so happens to possess a lot of intelligence, letting it understand that it can approach a human with a gun. The real question is, are these animals evil because they're more human, or are these human freaks more evil because they're more primal? Bestia. I had to show this manga a lot of respect because it's not really well known, and it's scary in its own right, even though it's weird as hell. A samurai is on a quest to find his sister, all the while these evil beastmen are devouring and killing anyone they come across. Women, and especially children, are not safe. They disembowel pregnant women just to eat the kids and eventually overpopulate the world. The weirdest thing about this manga I have to mention is that this samurai, whenever he sleeps with women, he kills them. Being half man, half beast, this would be a problem because beastmen trying to overpopulate the world take advantage of every woman they see. If a woman can't handle pregnancy, she will get green spots on her body and die. It's definitely weird and scary, so it deserved a spot here. Mr. Arashi's Amazing Freak Show. Talk about a disgusting, gut-wrenching manga. You will see probably the worst things you could ever witness here. Women getting their eyeballs licked while being taken advantage of, torture, and so much more. Honest to God, it's just plain gross. In this freak show, there are people who kill innocent animals without a second thought. And a 12-year-old girl is caught in the middle of all of this. It's sad and sickening seeing how much she gets taken advantage of and manipulated in the story. And the worst part about it is, there seems as if there's no way out. She might be stuck in this freak show for the rest of her life. This series is a nightmare. Shibatarian. Shiba's best friend wishes that everyone would be just like Shiba. This is the definition of be careful what you wish for. And everyone without a doubt has turned into Shiba. While trying to make a world that revolves around himself, the first thing on his bucket list is to kill everyone inside of his school, giving insight to Shiba's biggest secret. Just how is everyone turning into him? With many failed attempts of recreating himself, there would be nasty piles of rotten flesh, all in Shiba's form. Everyone on this planet has Shiba's murderous goal in mind, so just how can they stop him, especially when the characters themselves have the chances of becoming Shiba. Kichikujima. Being reminiscent of slasher films, a university's research club has found the discovery of the century on an island. At least you would think, only for them to find out that this island is home to a witchcraft practicing family of serial killers with a guy wearing a pig mask running around with a chainsaw. I think it's quite clear that they do not come in peace. It's easily one of the craziest horror mangas I've ever read, with the family itself actually reincarnating Satan, killing him, and then eating him as a stew. I am not making this up. This manga is as unpredictable as it is spine-tingling. It has some of the most gruesome deaths I've seen, and every single member of their family is disturbing and crazy in their own special ways, making them arguably some of the best characters I've seen in a horror manga. Hideout. A mother and father take a vacation so that they can forget a horrible moment in their marriage. There is an undeniable craving for family and affection here. Inspired by Stephen King, ending, it becomes easier to call this manga a tragedy. Because this vacation takes a turn for the worst, both of these lovers become trapped inside of the hideout of a disgruntled old man, making the father in this situation an anxiety-induced torture victim. And seeing what happens when this father escapes this torture room makes for one of the biggest plot twists I've seen in a while. High School of The Dead. Talk about a series that I'm extremely nostalgic towards. This series made me uncomfortable back then, and it does the same to this day, making it one of the best zombie mangas I've ever seen, let alone anime. Here you can expect non-stop fun, everything about it is tense, and outside of zombies eating their flesh, there are some pretty shitty people along the way. And I'm telling you, it really just keeps your heart racing the entire way through. This is a classic that deserves utmost respect, and arguably I'd say it's one of the best zombie series ever made. Bibliomania. Alice is confronted by a serpent, and she has to stay inside of his 666 roomed manor. But Alice has other plans. She wants to leave this manor entirely and make it to room 0. She would travel through all 666 rooms, with some being a lot more scary than others. The mystery behind every single room gives you something to look forward to because you don't know what to expect, and the ending of this series, heavily revolving around the Book of Truth and understanding what this truth is mind-blowing. Give it a chance, see Alice go through every single room and understand the minds and lifestyles of so many different people, and see how it can kill her numerous times or even turn her into a monster. Black Paradox. This is a very special recommendation. A group of suicidal individuals are trying their best to die, and each of them have extremely strong ties to the afterlife. Realizing this, their bodies would be used as gates to find paradise. They all have their own specific reasons for dying, whether it's having a hideous face or being bored of life. And in a wild turn of events, they find themselves pushing forward to save humanity, even though living was the last thing on their minds. Kasane. Kasane is an actor, and her mother would have been one of the best in the business, known for her beauty and amazing performances. Unfortunately, Kasane is the exact opposite of her mother. In fact, she's dreadfully ugly. This, on top of living up to her mother's legacy, is a recipe for disaster, making everyone hate her. All of this hatred, combined with her jealousy for other actresses, sheds Kasane's skin and turns her into a monster. She has the ability to kiss someone and take their face, giving her the attention and love she craves. Really though, this turns her into a predator. She would hunt down other actresses and destroy not only their futures, but the acting industry as a whole. It has rejected her, so she is going to make sure that everyone feels this same pain, showing us how much of a sadistic freak she really is. Shibuya Kingyo. This can be more funny than it is scary depending on how you're looking at it. Giant goldfish are killing and eating every single human in sight, while Shibuya is trapped in a giant fishbowl. I gotta mention, these fish are horrible. You'd think it would stop at just eating and killing people, but no, they lay their eggs inside of the corpses of every human. That doesn't suit their taste buds. And it only gets worse because they trap their prey in goldfish shit, keeping them alive just to save them for later. This is definitely one of the most unique and stupid survival horror manga I've seen. Manhole. One ordinary day, a naked man appears out of a manhole. However, as out of the ordinary as he already seems, his appearance is spreading a life-threatening disease that spreads by blood and physical contact, so mosquitoes become public enemy number 1. And that's not the only thing to worry about, because Resident Evil-like parasites burrow into a person's body, which can lead to them blowing up their heads and killing them. Higanjima. Akira's brother Atsushi has gone missing. As it turns out, the only lead for Akira to find his brother is to set out for an island, and this is a very special place. Vampires suffocate this tropical paradise, saying that there are even greater threats than vampires on this island because it is also occupied by demons, leading to the real question at hand. Can Akira save his brother and make it out of this island alive? N. Late night in a cemetery, a boy would find a family of 4 obsessively drawing the letter N on the ground, and a desire for answers causes this boy to do research on what exactly N is, and it's a religious cult. Whether or not this cult is actually real or just a facade raises a few eyebrows. With many people dying and having the letter N carved on their backs, the fear and tension only begins to rise, while this cult inherently controls and kills the lives of many. The drifting classroom. When a horror manga classic like this exists, it's hard not to mention it. With an explosion going off at an elementary school, this school teleports into an unknown world, where monsters are lurking, trying to feast on the children, teachers becoming psychotic and wanting to kill them. You're gonna see these children face off against a robot Marilyn Monroe, bleed, cry, and struggle to survive, and maybe even do the worst thing possible, eat their own classmates. I don't want to dig into the plot too much because this is a masterpiece, and it's best not knowing what to expect from it. The Kurosagi Corpse Delivery Service. You gotta make money somehow, and carrying around dead bodies might be the best occupation to do so. Organs are being constantly stolen for the black market, and in a strange turn of events, the delivery service begins to notice that a lot of people are dying in an extremely convenient way. It's almost as if their deaths are not natural. And here the huge conspiracy begins. Why are people dying in such horrible ways? Digging further into this, shadier parts of the business they work in are beginning to show, and something worse than insurance fraud might be happening here. Prison Lab. Ayama Aito is invited to a captivity game. A group of bullies has made his life a living hell, forcing him to eat out of a toilet and beating him brain dead. With the offer of this game, he can choose anyone that he's going to hold captive. With a chance encounter like this, he can torture any victim he wants. So he chooses the leader from his group of bullies, Aya Kirishima. He can inflict as much pain as he wants on her as long as she doesn't guess who is torturing her. If she guesses right, she gets 10 million yen, while the person torturing her becomes 10 million in debt, more or less ruining their life forever. Can Aito finally get the revenge that he craves, or will he make his life worse off? Panorama of Hell. A painter is obsessed with blood, and throughout all of his artwork, he expresses different depictions of hell itself, giving us a better understanding of the man behind such heinous artwork. He enjoys visiting the crematorium in his spare time and watching the dead bodies burn, because when they're on fire, they look as if they're dancing, illustrating a close depiction of hell. Through more of his pieces, we get to learn more about his family, giving us the life of his father, who would abuse him at a young age, showing us a lot of childhood trauma and why this painter is obsessed with hell. MPD Psycho. Here we have a detective with multiple personality disorder. After finding his girlfriend refrigerated in a box, with all of her limbs cut off, she is left alive to haunt this detective for the rest of his life. In order to cope with this trauma, he becomes a completely different person, making him nasty and reckless, which are the last qualities a detective should have. Take a look as he hunts and tracks down some of the most egregious murderers I've ever seen. These guys are sick in the head. They scalp people for fun and then use their skulls as pottery for their plants. It really gets more disturbing as the story goes on, while the detective here is just as bad as they are, if not worse. Take a look at how these psychopaths fight and outsmart each other to avoid the rule of law. DRCL Midnight Children. This depiction of the original story of Dracula has extremely stunning art, a very poetic approach to storytelling, and unsettling atmosphere that can match. Dracula toys with these children on a countless basis, while their insecurities and their fears of the unknown push them to pursue such a demonic creature. Despite his resemblance to Michael Jackson, Dracula in this story is very, very creepy. The way he manipulates and dissects the minds of everyone that comes into contact with him makes for some really good psychological horror. Everyone coping with loss here does not help at all, but Dracula finds himself with a really close attachment to a young boy, for reasons you're going to have to read to find out. Gannibal. If anything on here was a must-read, this is one you cannot miss out on at all. The suspense and shock that this manga offers is in a league of its own. This cop moves away to a remote village to avoid the city life that has caused his daughter to no longer trust him. In the past, he solved his problems with brute force, even though it was actually really necessary, but a child would never understand that, making his daughter close herself off not only to her own parents, but to the entire world. Suddenly, moving to this village actually makes her more comfortable. However, the disgusting secret here shows us that that leaving this town altogether is the best option. Our favorite cop is tasked to find out the mystery of cannibalism surrounding this village. The mind games and manipulation tactics had me on the edge of my seat, and you're not going to expect anything this manga throws at you. Even more so when cannibalism is just seen as a way to honor the dead. Uzumaki, another Junji Ito classic. An obsession is spiraling out of control, turning a man into a freak. Nonetheless, he likes spirals. Making his bathwater into a spiral and morphing his own body brings him peace. Okay, the guy seems crazy. Needless to say, the entire world agrees with his obsession. The world itself is creating spirals by turning people into snails, manipulating hair, and creating storms. The world is spiraling out of control. Literally. Insect Princess. Ryoichi panics after seeing a woman in his nightmares, while a girl attending the same school as him looks like the woman from his nightmares. This girl would believe that humans are only reserving the world for insects. As she comes into contact with Ryoichi, a strong attraction to him occurs, creating antennae that molest Ryoichi in his sleep. This girl is very odd. Needles come out of her body, causing her to poison people, and insects are her best friends. Like a deranged stalker, she traps Ryoichi in his own house, holding him hostage because she's obsessed with him. Thanks to her insect powers, there's nothing Ryoichi can do to avoid her. Just how does all of this play out? Will he be able to escape his obsessive insect stalker, or fall victim to her bug-like charm? Devilman Lady. Being the sequel to Devilman, there's a lot of pressure for this series, and it certainly lives up to it in every which way, giving it a spot on this list. It's honestly scarier than Devilman at times. The things that happen here are shocking, despicable, and horrible. The demons and the humans are evil to the core. While on a school trip, demons kill and take advantage of every girl that they can lay their eyes on. Devilman Lady, being at the focus of all of this, experiences horrible feelings. Lust and murderous intent overwhelm her, and one of the demons tries to take advantage of this girl, awakening her demonic powers, and kill evil with her own evil. This story exposes the horrible side of human beings. It's deep, adrenaline pumping, and uncomfortable to look at times. But what else could you expect from Go Nagai? Freesia. Society may as well be damned. If you know the saying, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, this manga is just that. If someone kills a member of your family, you have every single right to kill them or do whatever you want for your own revenge. This practice is known as proxy enforcement. If you paid good enough attention, you heard me right. In order to keep peace, they enact violence. Any person who tries to save a life and stop a citizen from getting their own personal revenge, they become a public enemy. This look on society creates a world where there are no good people, and the main character doing the right thing most certainly comes across as a villain, which is pretty scary. Which couldn't be more true until you see what he's capable of. PTSD Radio. The idol of an ancient Japanese god is causing chaos inside of the city, tormenting the lives of everyone around it. Its purpose is unknown, but it's clear that whether angel or demon, making people suffer is its one truest desire. Creepy humanoid depictions of the supernatural lurk and ruin everyone's lives. Finding out why this is happening and seeing how everyone deals with this can be really intriguing. Pet Shop of Horrors. There are a lot of strange deaths happening, and it might be connected to this pet shop. All of us be damned, this is not an ordinary pet shop. There are mythical creatures and monsters staying within it. Medusa, aliens, and the occasional god or two occupy the pet shop space. What makes this crazy is how anyone can just buy one of these gods or weird creatures right from the pet shop itself, and upon getting one, you have to sign a contract. If you fail to fulfill the contract and any kind of conditions you're given, you can expect a speed run into an early grave. Frankenfran. This might possibly be body horror at its best. Fran is a surgeon who conducts a lot of experiments on people. For better, who am I kidding? For worse, easily. A young girl gets run over by a car, and then Fran takes it upon herself to help her in her situation only to turn her into a caterpillar. This girl eventually evolves into the insect that she was supposed to be and starts eating people alive. What Frankenfran does to people is horrible to say the least. Shigahime. Miwako's a vampire that preys on young schoolboys, looking for her familiar. To incentivize this and increase her chances in finding what she wants, sleeping with her is bait. And one young boy has the misfortune of becoming her new slave. His reason for existing is to give his new master a heart. Her will is his will. At night, he becomes a hunter to not only feed Miwako, but to kill other demons and monsters of the night, causing him to slowly lose his humanity and become a puppet that's controlled by Miwako's strings. Ibitsu. Walking down the street at night by yourself is a pretty scary thing to do, but what can actually make this worse is to approach a deranged person and have them ask you a question. Kazuki answers a stranger's question, "Would you have a little sister?" And he replies with yes. This stranger wants to be Kazuki's little sister, and she will stop at nothing to make this happen. She hunts and tries to kill Kazuki's actual little sister, and he makes every attempt to protect his sister from this psychopath. Her dream is to become someone's perfect little sister, even if she has to kill every one of her new brother's friends and family. 6,000, the deep sea of madness. An underwater laboratory exists 6,000 meters under the water. There is a very chilling past to this laboratory, where a true tragedy struck. Failed human experiments rise from the depths below, attempting to expose the true terror of what happened here. Every scientist and employee here are used as sacrifices to appease the darkness, and in this darkness are where the true monsters lurk, eating away at everything inside of this underwater hell. Full night. Thick clouds have completely blocked out the sunlight, and so winter or night never end, meaning that there are no plants on this earth. So humans become plants themselves through surgery to preserve human lives. And Toshiro, a boy with stage 4 stomach cancer, can hear what these plants are saying. This manga is a suspenseful, disheartening, psychological mix of depression, wondering what this character is going to do with the next 2 years of his life, taking into account how his mother abuses him on a daily basis, and how he begins to understand the trauma of everyone who has become a plant. Some of these plants take full-fledged human forms and become monsters that kill people, with their own intensive reasons and issues that allow them no longer to live as a plant in peace. This series is one you need to come into with an open mind. Pupa. A brother and sister have a horrible upbringing where their father beats them senseless every day. In a series of unfortunate events, the little girl becomes a grotesque being known as a pupa, killing everything in sight. Her brother tries to reach out to her, but his love for his sister costs him his life. She kills him in her fit of rage. This brother survives because he has an insane regenerative ability, so he becomes his sister's only source of food. Is this sibling bond enough for them to save each other? Or is this pupa virus going to cause these siblings to destroy each other? Pumpkin Night. A high schooler who has been bullied hunts down and kills every single person that has harassed her in her school days. This feels like a horror movie. Seeing the power struggle between her and these bullies is definitely interesting. The way she tortures them sends a chill up my spine. And this manga is extremely over the top, unbelievable at times, which gives it a unique sense of charm. You should go into this not really expecting to take it seriously. Does Pumpkin Night get away with all of these mass murders? Read it and find out. Kuro Ihon. Here is a collection of short stories that are nothing if not unsettling. While changing the locks to an apartment, a man finds a corpse that is actually alive and filled with rats. But in all honesty, a lot of these short stories are pretty simple and they sell you on shock value. So it might be best that I don't say much. Dokumushi. A group of Japanese students that are part of the occult take a trip inside of an abandoned hotel to perform a dokumushi, which is the practice of creating a curse. While visiting this place, they run into a group of thugs that are keeping a girl held prisoner, letting the dokumushi begin. Every single person inside of this place falls to madness. They begin killing each other, poisoning each other, torturing each other, and taking advantage of everyone around them. It is definitely a bloody and disgusting spectacle seeing everyone kill each other, as they find out who is the craziest one among them, and if this black magic is actually a real thing. Magical girl apocalypse. Now let's talk about something that's genre defining. Of course, we see magical girls as if they're larger than life characters who are cute and beautiful, really just focusing their lives on saving people. Yet, it is not the case here. Thousands upon thousands of demonic magical girls are summoned onto the planet, and they have one simple objective: kill everyone and everything. And regular people are supposed to try and survive against this. Fuck zombies and giant goldfish. What do you do here? Magical girls can also create parasites and take over human beings. And my god, is it scary. You won't look at magical girl anime the same for a while after this. Shamo. There's obviously something wrong with this guy. Ryo Narushima kills his whole family. When picking up a knife, besides describing this scene as a bloodbath, he's more or less possessed, not wanting to do the things that he does whenever he picks a knife up. Truth be told, his life in prison isn't any better. I mean, it's prison, so you have an idea of what to expect. Seeing how this bloodthirsty murderer tries to survive in prison is definitely entertaining. He shanks people, learns karate, and we begin to see why he's there in the first place. The psychological horror and gore just keeps me hooked the entire time. And don't worry, this isn't just a prison manga. He does actually get out, but it's best you read that. Suicide Island. Well, as the name suggests, if you attempt suicide, you get sent to this island and you lose your identification, being forced to spend your days secluded here. Long story short, your life means nothing. Adding on to this, anyone and everyone can do whatever they want to you on this landmass. The weak and suicidal try to survive or kill themselves, while the strong constantly try to overpower them. This is a survival story, showcasing the best and worst sides of humanity. Hazureta Mina no Atama no Neji. A town is occupied by insane people. Everyone here has their own faults and issues. You can most certainly argue if embracing this mentality is going to help them or bury them. Sakuraki is extremely kind. One day she visits school with a teddy bear because it helps her with her stress. You would think she would snuggle it and cuddle it. Oh, you couldn't be more wrong. She stabs it and punches it and abuses it violently until realizing the teddy bear's pain. So she comes to school every day dressed up as this same teddy bear. Psychotic doesn't begin to describe this series. Book club. A thirst for knowledge makes a book club become overwhelmingly fascinated with this cursed book. The book kills anybody that reads it, but do you think that matters? Not in the slightest. It has a very dark origin and is actually made out of human skin. There is a dark past to this book that is being hidden, and honestly, for good reason. Reptilia. Yumiko keeps coming into contact with a snake woman. The woman wants nothing more than to eat frogs and get her revenge by killing Yumiko. The snake monster reincarnates every so often, so can she truly escape this? You're just gonna have to find out.
Monkey Peak is unlike any other horror manga that you've seen before. About a group of employees that work for a pharmaceutical company going on a long camping trip in order to find ingredients for new medicines that they can make. But unfortunately, in this mountainous terrain, there exists a bunch of demon monkeys. The best way to describe this would be a yokai or cryptid horror manga where the cryptid is hunting down any and all humans in its path. If you're afraid of animals or the supernatural, I'd say give this a read. The Summer Hikaru Died, a mystery horror manga about an unknown supernatural entity that is a copy of Hikaru and is taking his place in life. But unfortunately, Hikaru's closest friends begin to catch on. And the best part about this manga is finding more about this creature that took over Hikaru's body. The art is great and the psychological horror hits so different. The imagery is just plain disturbing. Up next, we have the horror / battle shonen manga Dolly Kill Kill. Very similar to Attack on Titan, but the premise would be a bunch of giant dolls raining from the sky and wiping out all of humanity. I actually read this manga a long time ago, and turns out it is from the same artist that does the art for Blue Lock. And personally, I prefer this work because when I read Dolly Kill Kill, I could not take a single break from reading it. I highly recommend it. Similar to the first manga on this list, Invasion of the Apes. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this one is very stomach turning. It might as well be Goblin Slayer with monkeys. And it's pretty scary to see how intelligent these monkeys are. The art is really gory and graphic, and never thought I would have seen Goblin Slayer with monkeys. Really disgusting and freaky, and if you want to see something along those lines, then go ahead and read this. Hokago Gakari was originally a light novel, but this will be the manga adaptation that I'm talking about in this video. It's about a bunch of high school kids going to this realm called the after school realm. When it hits a certain time at night, the main character is immediately teleported there with his fellow classmates to basically survive the night and get rid of the ghosts that haunt the school. But unfortunately, they don't have any meaningful way to fight these ghosts back, and the supporting cast does end up getting killed off. School Zone is an old school horror manga from the queen of horror manga, Kanako Inuki. And if you like anything from Junji Ito or even the creator of The Drifting Classroom and haven't read this yet, I think you should definitely give this a chance. It's a staple in horror manga that I feel like often gets overlooked because not many people know about it or even talk about it for that matter. And it deserves a lot more credit. Watashi no Hara no Naka no Bakemono. Oh my god, pronouncing that was a pain. But this manga is about a girl who kinda just faces life and grits her teeth and bears with everything that she might come across, like her teacher uncomfortably flirting with her and touching her. Not only this, she gets bullied pretty bad when she does have her period. And one day she eventually breaks and kills that same teacher that would put his hands on her. And then she'd unfortunately become a killer and try to push other people to become just like her. The Laughing Vampire has some of the best art I've seen out of a horror manga about our main character being resurrected as a vampire. And with Konosuke's newfound power, he would viciously murder and feast upon civilians and begin to tear the entire city to shreds under the wing of his new mentor. It's a very interesting take on vampires and I recommend reading it. Now, M Collection is a very gory old school horror manga about a man that collects a bunch of weird instruments from body parts to magic mirrors and even a lump of human flesh. Every single one of these items would have a story as to how they reached him. And every chapter would be a new story about every single object in his collection. All of these short stories would be extremely disturbing, from body horror to psychological, but for the most part, all of these are disgusting and graphic. Ichiban Kawaii Hanashi seems like a cute manga at first until everything takes a nosedive as a girl sees this man get murdered by a supernatural entity. Every chapter would be a different horror story, from a crazy murderous psycho little sister to a little girl being turned into a fish and getting eaten by her grandmother. Off Village Dai Zombo Akabe is a zombie manga with absolutely insane art. Now, on the topic of zombies, this manga is surprisingly sentimental, covering topics such as what it means to be human and things of that nature. The psychopaths are interesting and very Dead Rising-esque, as this woman has pet zombies and she'd kidnap humans just to feed them. I found this really cool because they even had superpower zombies like Left 4 Dead, like this one, the Abomination of Wandering Corpses. And seeing these squadrons fight these zombies and plan out their attacks was very entertaining and suspenseful. Urabaito Tobo Kinshi is a manga about finding a shady part-time job, and let's just say that job is the worst decision of your life. It's like working at Five Nights at Freddy's. The main character would find herself working at a resort as her and the supporting cast try to survive against demons and evil spirits. It's long running, the ghosts are horrifying, and I definitely think you guys should check this one out. Endon Yobanashi. The premise for this one is very weird. This girl kidnaps a man and is about to murder him. He's strapped to the bed, and before she decides to kill him, we are met with a bunch of scary stories that she has to tell him. Now that aspect is a little cringe, but outside of that, the stories that she does tell are pretty good. Imagine being tortured and this girl's just dropping banger after banger. It's actually very funny in a weird way, but still a scary manga nonetheless. Gokiburi no Lei, or translated in English, House of Cockroaches. Like before, this would be a collection of short manga horror stories, which would also be from the same creator of School Zone, a manga I talked about earlier on this list. From a wife murdering her husband by forcing him to eat leeches, to your stereotypical serial killer slasher-esque story, or a woman being strangled by a haunted telephone. Everything in this manga is just bizarre. Yuan no Kanata, a paranormal manga with a scratchy art style like Chainsaw Man, about a ghost hunter fighting back ghost possession. The art is great, stylized, and has a constant ominous atmosphere, complemented by feelings of melancholy. This is definitely a horror manga with vibes and good storytelling that constantly keeps you reading. It's very Ergo Proxy or Boogie Pop-esque, like you're watching a quiet late night anime. Tonari no Jisan, a psychological horror with some of the best body horror I've ever seen. This story is actually really good because there are a bunch of select few people that view humans as these strange monsters with oversized heads. Our main character slowly loses her mind as she is constantly forced to see this through her day-to-day life. And this has definitely been one of the more interesting horror mangas I've ever read. It's stomach turning and you can't help but turn the pages because the story's that interesting. Killing Morph. This series is about a girl that gets so traumatized about a serial killer that she develops extreme PTSD and sees this same serial killer all throughout her life and slowly begins to lose her mind. And she slowly begins to become more and more like him, even eventually trying to kill him so that she can overcome this trauma. Will she morph into this same serial killer that she met before? Or will she get a hold of her sanity? Aka Aihan to Kuro Aihan, a manga that consists of multiple short stories, but unfortunately only one of them is translated, which is called My House. But despite that, I feel like this is still worth the mention. It's about a girl living in a haunted house with her family, and it's a very grounded take on how she would deal with this issue. And this story would be based off the author's experiences of living in a haunted house. Hopefully this video could give this manga more attention and we can get the other stories translated. The Story of Our Corpse Hunt, a manga about 4 students that accidentally discover a body from one of their fellow classmates that has been kidnapped by a man that tortured her and did many unspeakable things. Unfortunately, things go very south as they get into this cop's investigation of the scene and find themselves hunted and stalked by the same man that killed their classmate. Up next, we have Pygmalion. I did a more detailed review for this manga, but this manga is about a bunch of mascots coming to life and basically killing, eating, and doing a bunch of undescribable things to people. And it's definitely one of the weirdest mangas you'll ever see. The story's pretty good and has some symbolism in it, but there are some moments that I don't necessarily like. It has some very juvenile horror that can both be good and bad, depending on the reader. Toko, a very gory horror manga that kinda leans more to the action side, but outside of that, I felt like the horror elements were good enough and strong enough to put it on the list. It has a very classic early 2000s anime vibe, and the anime has a cult following behind it. For the most part, I feel like most people checking out this video aren't really leaning on the action side of things, but here is an option that you may or may not find interesting. Because if you like a lot of things that these horror mangas do, you might actually like Toko. Ochazuki Nori the 13th. Another horror anthology with a bunch of short stories. And I think the biggest selling point is how disturbing this art is. It's old school, but you're going to be seeing a lot of freaky shit. This horror manga would also have a lot of comedic elements that might make you laugh more than actually scare you. But despite that, the horror moments that do occur are very notable, and above all else, very inspiring if you want some creative juices to help you make your own horror story. Shuffle Gakuen, a horror manga about a guy that practically stops at nothing to kill someone. He even dresses up as a woman to lure men in and then kill them. And at some point in the story, everything shuffles. Space, people, and including this serial killer. He would have swapped bodies with one of the students, and the rest of the class have to survive their encounters with this serial killer while inside their distorted and shuffled school. Uchi no Shima. This art is so detailed, and you're going to be seeing a lot of disturbing and disgusting shit. Our main character ends up on an island with a bunch of mysterious life forms. It's a mixture of Resident Evil meets The Thing, and everyone on this island has to survive. I don't want to spoil too much, but it is a very insane read, and one of the best infection / possession, or whatever you want to call it, kind of mangas I've seen. Seeds of Anxiety, an old horror manga that'll definitely make you feel anxious. This is also another collection of a bunch of short horror stories, but the way they draw expressions and the overall vibe is so off-putting that I guarantee you're going to be uncomfortable while reading it. There's not exactly anything that I could really outline or explain. This is one of those that you're just gonna have to read. Something you're just gonna have to see for yourself. Lullabies from Hell, an old school manga with disturbing imagery and plenty of gore. This manga consists of 4 different stories, and one of them is about the type of dreams you'd have as a fetus, and a woman giving birth to a lizard. It's really some new and creative stuff, and if you're yearning for new things, new ideas, you need to read this manga right here. The Red Snake, another horror manga from the same creator. But in this manga, whenever a red snake appears, horrible things begin to happen. I'd say it's very Japanese folklore and gives a very mythical and ancient type of horror. Every night, these snakes would attack the main character's sister, and she slowly starts not being herself anymore, cutting off chicken heads and drinking their blood, and even becoming murderous. This manga is really just insane. Hinatsugi Mura. A bunch of university students go to a mountain and find a strange village, and they are forced to live there for the rest of their lives, as this mysterious woman with supernatural powers disfigures their bodies and changes them. They can either die or become one of these monsters, but in the end, they will never be able to leave the village and might even find a fate worse than death itself. Lychee Light Club. Now this manga has insane artwork. It's about this Nazi-esque organization creating the ultimate AI. This robot comes to life with the goal of capturing women. And honestly, this manga isn't for the faint of heart. But alongside that, this manga has a sentimental story about this same robot becoming human. Will Lychee be the devil of destruction or a light of hope? You'll have to read it and find out yourself. Zashisu. This manga is about our main character who has a classmate that turns out to be a murderer. I would compare this manga to a thriller movie. Unfortunately, this series is still ongoing. There's only 5 chapters by the recording of this video, but I think the story is really good and worth checking out. I was really surprised at how well done the dialogue was. It was genuinely fun to read. Alongside this Naoki Urasawa art style. Kaiki Tante Shiraku Hamura. This manga hasn't been fully translated, but I thought it was interesting enough to put in the video. A very interesting and rough art style that has the vibes of a kawaii early 2000s anime like Lucky Star. Every chapter, our main characters deal with a new problem, from a one-eyed murderous clown to a snake man, and experiencing an acid trip that sends them to Alice in Wonderland. Every chapter was something new, and this was a very good read. Kuhime. This manga is about a cannibal woman with superhuman-esque strength trying to hunt down the main character, and he, like many others, have to fight and survive against her antagonistic force. It's kind of like you're watching an action-packed version of The Grudge, where all the main characters are finding out a plan to fight her back, but she doesn't stop because of how relentless and hungry she is. It is painful. Now, this manga is definitely one of the weirdest ones I've ever read. It's about pain tolerance. Every chapter is short and can sometimes be comedic, but it's kind of unsettling to read. Every chapter starts off with a meter of how painful the injury is going to be that you're going to witness, and you just constantly read people in pain. It's not the scariest thing, but I do feel like it belongs in this bracket. It's just very unsettling, and it can be comedic for some. I guess it depends on your perception while you read it. Mako the Psycho Girl, a very old school manga about a really ugly psychotic little girl who goes to school and is a psychic and causes a bunch of disasters similar to the movie Carrie. But with Mako's psychic powers, things would be a lot more bizarre and gruesome. And she's definitely not afraid to get her hands dirty and just straight up stab her victims. Junji Ito's Gyo. Now, on this list, I mainly wanted to avoid having Junji Ito on here because I feel like most people know about that, and that wouldn't be any new horror mangas for y'all. But for people who've never heard of him or have not read this one yet, Gyo is a must read. Fish start walking on land, and he takes this premise and goes so far with it, you'd never expect how disturbing this manga would be. A newfound fear you never thought you would have had. Alice in Hell. This would be a very gruesome and post-apocalyptic take on Alice in Wonderland. To sum up this manga, it's practically Elfen Lied, but with Alice from Alice in Wonderland. She can look at you and blow up your head. She's kind of a good guy. This is more action-packed, but I feel like the gruesome nature of this manga might be pretty interesting for you if you're a fan of horror manga. The story and art are great, and I feel like this shouldn't be overlooked. The Zombie Maria. This is from the same creator of Nejimaki Kagyu. It's a short, sentimental one-shot about a boy falling in love with a zombie girl. It really is an amazing story, and it might bring a tear to your eye, alongside some of the best zombie art I've ever seen. It's not too scary, but it's one of the more interesting zombie mangas I've read. It's not long, and the story is just that good. If you know anything about Nejimaki Kagyu, I feel like the art alone warrants a read. Hakaiju, the kaiju horror manga. This is very well known, and I would say this is the best horror take on a kaiju story. One day our main character is at school and a giant monstrous kaiju begins to attack Tokyo. But unfortunately, this kaiju would create other kaijus that aren't colossal size, so you're gonna die in a pretty gruesome way. Easily the most horrifying kaijus I've ever seen across anime and manga. Monster Circus. This series, like the name hints at, is filled with a circus full of monsters. There's a lot of crazy gory things that happen in this, and every chapter follows a different member from the circus, giving you a full backstory and spooky tale. Each chapter is practically a very good mini episode, and it focuses on main characters that are basically freaks. I feel like that's not really taken advantage much in manga, just a bunch of main cast of monsters, and I think this is worthy of the read. White Book, a collection of 7 different horror stories with a more modern anime art style. A very realistic anime look. And the things that you'll witness in this manga are horrifying. From ghosts to snuff videos and some just foul things that humans do. Honestly, there was a scene where a guy had a cooler of... and you know what? I don't want to get demonetized, you should just see it for yourself. Green World's another horror manga, more on the action-packed side. But if you like Attack on Titan or Dolly Kill Kill, this is the same, but instead with plants. These same plants would also fuse with humans and make them into these horrible carnivorous monsters. The main characters fight them back with giant chainsaw swords and weapons that look like they'd be pulled straight out of God Eater. This was definitely one of the more fun reads I've had, and I think it's worth your time. Brain Damage is a psychological horror with 4 different stories in it. One is about people being trapped in a labyrinth with a murderer. The second is about a girl that lives in a cursed room, and there's a very special twist I don't want to spoil. The third one is about an old man with Alzheimer's and supernatural powers unintentionally killing people around him. Honestly, this one was just foul. And the fourth one, I don't know how to describe it without spoiling it, but yeah, it's something. The Dark Beast Anamorphosis. Now this is a collection of a bunch of stories, but there's a lot of stomach-turning content. It's very rare that I feel like the author of a series could potentially be a weirdo, and this is very weird. I'd like to talk more about this one, but I think the more I do try to, I'm going to get demonetized. That's how bad I think it is personally. I was actually debating on whether or not I should even give this thing exposure. Hanya Haramida. A collection of horror stories that sometimes have comedic elements. Each story has sci-fi elements and interesting twists to them, with one even taking inspiration from Alien. And the creator of this has an art style similar to Masamune Shiro, the creator of Ghost in the Shell. These stories are pretty good, and I guarantee you're not going to see another manga like it. Nagaraja. This manga is more on the action side, but has plenty of good horror elements and interesting monster design. The art style even reminds me of Dorohedoro. In this manga, the main antagonist is a giant dragon with a humanoid face. And this same dragon would terrorize humans by requiring sacrifices. But not just any sacrifices, they'd have to be young virgin women. And the main character would be one of the original sacrifices for this dragon, but she's out for revenge. Gishi Sanjiden. Another collection of short horror stories. With a very cartoony yet detailed art style, these stories would range from being sentimental at times, and covering psychological horror-esque themes, to downright being odd and disturbing. I would say this is probably the least scary manga on the list, but psychologically, these stories could affect you. Honestly, I was debating on whether or not it should be up here, but then ultimately I felt like the morbid and solemn atmosphere could do something for you. Tokyo Dragon. Similar to Green World's Dolly Kill Kill and Attack on Titan, but instead there are dragons. I think this is closest to Hakaiju, but instead just straight up dragons than kaijus. And my god, I don't think I've ever seen more horrifying looking dragons in any manga. It's like something pulled straight out of Blood Sea, and if you like that, you need to read this. The Devil of the Gods. An Exorcist manga. That reminds me of the video game Faith. I think what makes this manga compelling is that this is a more grounded approach to exorcism rather than this battle shonen epic fight thing. This is more realistic, suspenseful, and it actually feels like there are stakes. When the characters are possessed, it looks absolutely horrifying, and it's like you're watching a classic exorcism movie. Kaku Kazoku. A horrifying manga about a boy that makes a wish upon seeing a meteor shower, but unfortunately his wish would be carried out in a very monkey's paw-esque situation. He would wish for his family to become united again, but they all become one grotesque monster. His entire family would be conjoined and turned into this. Ugh. The art is extremely detailed, and you'll be seeing a lot of ripping and tearing. The Hand of Zeus, a manga that is still being translated, but it would follow 6 criminals that find themselves in probably the worst situation ever. Finding the Hand of Zeus, something that is capable of destroying the entire world, that summons a mouth that can open a portal anywhere. What will these criminals do with this strange artifact? And what are the conflicts that'll come out of using this? Kiriko Kill. Kiriko is a monster with spots all over her body and elongated limbs. And if you ever ask her to kill somebody, she will do it. Her supernatural powers are beyond frightening, like crawling out of your coffee, or just crawling out of your body in general. Her powers are horrifying, and I could see this becoming a lot more popular with the creepy pasta-esque vibes this manga has. In a way, I'd compare this to The Grudge, But Kiriko has such a unique sense of horror to her, and I feel like that in itself warrants the read.
Well, that about wraps it up. Thank you guys for watching, and if you liked the video, go ahead and show some support, and subscribe to this channel for more manga reviews and manga recommendations. If you like this video, you are gonna love these ones that I'm showing on your screen. And trust me, you might just find your new favorite YouTube video in there.